I wanted to highlight today how the Israeli occupation, since day one in 1967, used and weaponized the issue of the military system, the military courts and the military laws, the military orders that they imposed on the occupied territories as the main tool of the oppression, the control, and they established a very comprehensive discriminating system via these military courts that they are applicable just on the Palestinian people who lives in the occupied territories. So immediately after the occupation, Israel created the military court system. They started to initiate military orders without respecting the international humanitarian law and the international human rights law that was supposed, especially the IHL, that was supposed to be implemented in the context of occupation. These thousands of military orders actually illegalized almost every aspect of our daily life as Palestinians. Every single action of resistance against the occupation, any kind of gathering, unions, groups, political parties, student movements became illegal under the occupation. And this is how they justified arresting hundreds of thousands of Palestinians all these years and prosecuting them in these military courts in very biased, discriminating procedures, comparing to the criminal procedures implemented in the Israeli law and inside the state of Israel. It's very complicated issue, the case of the prisoners. I would prefer to highlight the current context about the political prisoners and what happened immediately after the 7th of October. So on the 6th of October, we had around 5,000 prisoners from the occupied territories. This includes for us Gaza, the West Bank, and also East Jerusalem. But you should know that Israel annexed East Jerusalem back in the 70s, and they don't consider East Jerusalem as part of the occupied territories. But immediately on the 7th of October, they started to launch mass arrest campaigns from Gaza, from East Jerusalem, from the West Bank, even from inside Israel against Palestinian citizens of the state of Israel. And in all these months, just from the West Bank and Jerusalem and inside Israel, they arrested more than 9,800 Palestinians. Those from Gaza, we estimated that the number was over 5,000 people, but the Israeli occupation were never disclosing an accurate information about how many people they arrested from the Gaza Strip, and they are continuing to arrest from the Gaza Strip till today. Most of these prisoners from the West Bank and the Jerusalem area were subjected for administrative detention. Administrative detention is a British heritage around security issues, where the military commander can issue a detention order based on a very general claim that the person is associated with terrorism or he is causing a threat to the security, and he can send him for 6 months detention that could be renewed indefinitely without any legal procedures, without clear accusation, without evidences. And this is a very clear arbitrary detention that is considered a war crime, and it could be a crime against humanity according to the international law. The same, actually, there is a very similar Israeli law that is called the unlawful combatant law that is used against the prisoners from Gaza. Actually, after 2005, when Israel claimed that they withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. And currently, there's more than 2,300 people from Gaza that they were arrested on the 7th, and after the 7th, they are held as illegal competent indefinitely without any legal procedures. And actually, all these people were brought to the court via the video conference over cell phones without presence of any lawyers, without judicial proper review, and the court were confirming the detention for all these thousands of detainees without any legal counseling, without any proper legal procedures. So this is very clear that this is arbitrary detention. The conditions inside, of course, there's also others, hundreds of people were arrested for very minor issues like incite on Facebook, Twitter, social media. Any criticism against the war on Gaza, the genocide that takes place in Gaza, any support for the Gazan people, any solidarity with the Gazan people would be considered incitement for violence and support for terrorism, and would be a reason for arrest. So far, they arrested hundreds of students, activists, political leaders, and unionists, journalists, women, elderly, anyone, children could be arrested for these reasons. The other main worrying thing in the issue of the prisoners is the conditions that they were imposed on the prisoners immediately and after the 7th. So the Israeli authority, including the prison authority and the Minister of Interior Security, Ben Gvir, and the army immediately imposed security measures, and they declared an emergency circumstances in the whole inside Israel and in all of the occupied territories. And under these security measures, they canceled all the family visits, all the lawyers' visits, all the Red Cross Committee visits. And actually, the Red Cross Committee till today, as an international, the only international side that was supposed to visit these prisoners and monitor their conditions, they were banned visits till today. The families as well are banned visits. The lawyers are the only side that can meet these prisoners, but under lots of restrictions. And they started to impose emergency situation inside the prisons. So they closed all the sections, which means they canceled all the recreation period for the prisoners. The prisoners are locked in their cells, in their rooms for 24 hours. Just lately, in the last 2 months, they started to give them less than 1 hour recreation time. They confiscated all their clothes, all their properties. The mass arrest caused high crowdness inside the rooms. Half of the prisoners, they are sleeping on the ground without proper mattresses and covers. They cut the electricity, the water in most of the prisons. They minimized the food that they offer them. So in these months, we were documenting very serious cases of prisoners that they lost huge amount of their weight because of this starvation policy that was imposed in the last 8 months, 7 months. The health neglect, they closed all the clinics in all the prisons, and the health neglect with the violence, because the security forces were raiding the rooms of the prisoners on daily basis, attacking them very harshly, using wooden sticks and the weapons and the electric shocks, tasers, and whatever they have in order to beat, attack, and humiliate the prisoners. In some of the cases, we documented rape by using the sticks, and sexual assaults and harassment. So far, just this morning, we lost one administrative detainee that his health deteriorated in detention. He's 60 plus, and he died this morning, which brings the total number of those that we know their names that they died inside the prison from the 7th of October till today to 19 detainees, where all those from Gaza that died inside custody, so far we don't know the exact figure of those who died. The estimation that it's over 40 detainees who died in custody inside the Israeli military camps, because the prisoners from Gaza, part of them, they are held under the army in military camps, which known to be very, very harsh. It's even worse than the stories that we heard from Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, and these prisons that we thought that it's the most harsh circumstances. The prisoners from Gaza that they were held under the army were beaten, attacked physically, very brutally. Also, dogs were attacking these detainees, but some detainees died out of health neglect, some out of physical attacks. The detainees till today, there is detainees from Gaza since the 7th of October till today, they are handcuffed 24 hours, 7 days a week. All these months, they are held in detention while they are handcuffed. For some of them that they were held in state man up till last month, they were also blindfolded all this period and forced to sit or to kneel on their knees on the ground all the day. The food is very poor. It's basically bread with like marmalade or chocolate or cheese, and that's all. So they also lost lots of weight, but some of them out of the handcuffs that caused them injuries, and it because of the lack of the proper health treatment, the doctors later amputated their hands or their legs because of the deterioration in the health conditions. So basically, we estimate that currently there's more than 11,000, around 12,000 prisoners inside the Israeli prisons, whether under the army or under the prison authority. They all suffer from different levels of violations, and it's considered war crimes and crimes against humanity, and it needs to be investigated. The fact that Israel is banning the Red Cross from entering the prisons has one reason: in order not to allow the international bodies to investigate properly in these war crimes and in the circumstances of the prisoners. Because already, and of course, all these years, they never allowed the special rapporteur on torture or the working group on arbitrary detention or the commission of inquiry to have any visit to the occupied territories, including to the prisoners, to investigate these conditions. And this is why we are calling for the civil society around the world to join the PDS, to join the initiatives coming from the grassroots, from groups like yourself, to think about how we can join effort to put an end for these violations and to find the perpetrators accountable for these serious crimes committed against the prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, so much. What you have spoken to us are crucial, and you enlighten us how the Israelis control through mass arrest and the inhuman treatment of the prisoners and detainees. And these are absolutely horrible and against all existing human rights and humanitarian laws. Thank you for joining us today. And before turning to Dr. Ghassan, I'd like to highlight again that we are now 48 participants in this conference on war, genocide, and crisis of humanity in Gaza. And I'd like to tell you that this conference was organized by Asia Pacific Social Forum and Asia Cultural Forum on Development, ACFOD, and Initiatives for International Dialogue, IID, International Peace Bureau, and Peace Momo South Korea, South Asia Association for Poverty and Eradication, SAP, and Palestinian Solidarity Movement in Asia Pacific. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Ghassan from Gaza, and thank you for joining us. Are you there? Can you hear us? Just a minute ago, I saw Dr. Ghassan on the screen. Can the host check the status of connection, internet connection with Dr. Ghassan?
Oh, sorry, Francis, for Dr. Casa, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you check whether
He doesn't seem to be in the meeting.
Oh, a few minutes ago, I saw his name on the screen.
Just one sec. Dr. Casa, are you there? Dr. Casa? I can't see him on
Okay.
my participant list. Maybe he's having internet issues.
Yes. Probably he is having technical problems for a few more minutes. Then let me move to the next speaker. We were going to have Chris Sidoti from UN Commission on Inquiry on Palestine and Israel, but we are unfortunate that he suddenly became unavailable due to his activities today. So let me invite Feroz Mihiborawala. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name not exactly. And we ask you to speak on the 7th of October, Gaza Ghetto Uprising.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. You got my name pretty close. It's a tough one. So I'll start now. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to speak out here. I'm truly honored, and I'll take my 10 to 15 minutes and I'll just say a few words. One is that political language is very important. The words that we say is very important. We know how Netanyahu lied, so we need to say our own version of the truth. So for me, the 7th of October, and I think for all Palestinians and those who support the resistance, the 7th of October was a Gaza ghetto uprising akin to the Warsaw ghetto uprising of the 1944. It was a prison break from a concentration camp of 17 years. And essentially, what the Palestinians call it, they call it the Al-Aqsa Storm or the Al-Aqsa Flood. So this is the third intifada, the first one in 87, the second major intifada in 2002, and now we have the third major intifada in 2023. Now, the other point is that people tend to call it a war between Hamas and Israel. So let us be very clear. This is the war of a colonial occupying power on the occupied people. This is not a war. This is a war of occupation. The third part is that we are witnessing a Holocaust. So let's call it a Holocaust. We've lost 186,000 plus Palestinians in the last 10 months. 8% of the population has been wiped out. This is even worse than the Nazi Holocaust or World War II. So the point is that let's call it a Holocaust. Brazilian President Lula called it a Holocaust. More and more people are now calling it a Holocaust. I think the World Social Forum Committee on Palestine should also take a position on that. The other point is that why the uprising at this time? Why 7th of October? Okay. So they take it back. 7th of October seems the beginning of history for a lot of people who read the New York Times and watch the CNN, BBC, but we know better. This is about, at least at the minimum, 1917 Balfour Declaration. So it is about more than 106 to 107 years of occupation and colonization and ethnic cleansing. This is not only colonization, this is colonization and ethnic cleansing. And this Zionist colonization, and I call it the Judeo-Nazi Zionist colonization. It was Yeshua Shaul Leibowitz, a great Israeli Jewish philosopher, the conscience of Israel, I would say, who coined the term Judeo-Nazi, and many anti-Zionist Jews now do that. Jonathan Ophir is one of them. So I call it the Judeo-Nazi Zionist occupation, colonization, and ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And Yeah. Now, reasons for the uprising are manifold. Number one was that Netanyahu was practically mocking the people of Palestine that the chapter is over. You all can keep on jumping in Gaza all that you all want to. I have UAE, I have Bahrain, Saudi Arabia is all due to sign, Sudan has signed, Morocco has signed. Nobody gives much about you anymore. And 10 days before the 7th of October, Netanyahu stood up in the United Nations and showed a map. There was no Palestine on that map, and he spoke of the India-Middle East corridor going from India to via Saudi Arabia and on to Israel, Haifa, Greece, and to Europe. So he was mocking them. Smotrich and Gavir were clearly saying that the Al-Aqsa is under threat. We'll destroy the Al-Aqsa. They were building settlement upon settlement in the West Bank. And the prisoners question, all these questions are there. So I'll just go through the questions. The number one point that it is called the Al-Aqsa flood for a reason. They are out to destroy the Al-Aqsa, so-called rebuild the third temple of Solomon, and bring about Armageddon and then coming of the Messiah. That is the Jewish Zionist and the Christian Zionist version of their interpretation of the Testaments. The second part of the plan was the preemptive strike of 7th October was to dismantle the Abrahamic Accords, and that they have. Saudi is in no position to sign it anymore, and all the Arab governments who have already signed so-called peace agreements with Israel are all on the back foot, apart from Jordan.
Sorry, you are muted. Feroz, please unmute first.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. The third point was ending the siege of Gaza. And because Gaza
Your volume is low. Microphone volume is low.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Your microphone volume is low. Please raise it up.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Yeah. The third point was ending the siege of Gaza. Gaza is a concentration camp, the open air prison. For 17 years, 2.3 million people were put into a prison camp, and they had nowhere to go. They wanted to break out of the prison walls, and that they did so. That's why I said it was the Gaza Ghetto uprising, a prison break. The fourth part was the prisoner issue that our sister from Palestine spoke about, our comrade from Palestine, where we now actually have 20,000 and more Palestinian prisoners, 10,000 prior to 7th of October and another 11,000 after October 7th, and more it increases day by day. So the question of the Palestinian prisoners is very, very fundamental to the resistance out there. And yeah, so these were the reasons for the 7th of October uprising. And now we need to look at the consequences of the uprising. The consequences, and before I go to the consequences, let me say a few more points that Israel has no right to defend itself by international law. As an occupying power, Israel is responsible to protect the people it occupies. So by international law, no occupying power, be it Israel or an America or a Britain or a France, no occupying power has a right to defend itself, be it in Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan. So this entire, rubbish that a Biden or a Kamala Harris or a Trump or a Macron or a Trudeau or any of these Western leaders who immediately come on board and say Israel has the right to defend itself, they are saying it because Israel has no right to defend itself, because an occupying power has no right to defend itself. Noura Erakat and John Dugard have written brilliant legal documents on this entire thing. Noura Erakat and John Dugard, look them up. Then I come to the entire question of what really happened on the 7th of October. We are told that babies were killed, which Biden lied. CNN said nothing of that sort happened, though Netanyahu said it again in the US House. Women were raped. No, they were not raped, because the United Nations committee went to Israel and Israel did not let them meet any of the victims. So there was no question of any rape or sexual harassment. Now, 7th of October, something very important happened. Prior to 7th of October, there were inputs three important inputs I'll give you. The New York Times article, which was the headline article, that said that Israel was aware of the coming attack by Hamas 1 year prior to the attack. There was a 40-page dossier which described what kind of an attack it would be. 1 year before, Netanyahu was aware of the coming attack. So there's no place to hide. You can't practice in Gaza without the drones and the entire surveillance looking down on you. There's no place to plan secretly. The second point is that Egyptian intelligence warned Israel, Netanyahu specifically, 10 days before the attack. Netanyahu called it fake news. Egypt says we warned you all. The third were the women soldiers on the perimeter of the Gaza fence, Gaza wall, who were telling their superiors, their seniors, that listen, something is happening, the Hamas and the resistance is planning. They were told to shut up or they would be facing military tribunals. So clearly, Israel was aware of the coming attack. Okay. And they were inciting the resistance, making it impossible for them to survive, which is why 7th of October happened for the reasons that I've told you. In that context, we need to look at the term the Hannibal Directive, because that is what happened. After the 1,200 people, people were killed, 300 were soldiers, the Golani Brigade, I believe, who the Hamas defeated. The second set of people were in the Noah Film Festival and the various kibbutz, the kibbutz Berry and the other kibbutz around. The reports are very clear. The latest Haaretz article has now broken the story again, though it was, I think we need to salute Max Blumenthal, the American Jewish editor of Grey Zone, he and a number of other brave journalists actually broke that story at that time, that the Hannibal Directive was in action and the Israeli civilians in the kibbutz, the Israeli civilians in the Noah Film Festival were killed by the Israeli army, by the Apache helicopters, and Israel is not allowing any inquiry into the entire incident. Okay, so we have Israeli victims who have gone to the Supreme Court asking for clarification and an investigation to what happened. So it was a total lie, a fabrication. The Hannibal Directive is about basically the principle saying that if any Israeli soldier or Israeli civilian is to be taken captive, shoot them, kill them, do not let them go into the hands of the resistance, because they'll be exchanged as prisoners. So that is what happened. Noah Ferez, a reservist Army Air Force officer, says mass Hannibal action was in action that day. Mass Hannibal action was put into action that day. Okay. Now let us have a look at the 7th of October uprising and its impact on global politics. Number one, now there are two worlds. There is one that supports Palestine and the other that is against Palestine. One that stands with Palestine and the resistance, one that stands with Israel and the Holocaust. And we are witness to that in the American US Congress, Senate and Congress hearing, where Netanyahu got 58 standing ovations for all his lies and justification for the genocide, for the Holocaust, for the Palestinian people. So there are two worlds. One with Palestine, and that is the global majority. The overwhelming majority of nations stand with Palestine, apart from a handful of former colonial and neo-colonial powers, Britain, France, Germany, and America. That's all that there is with Israel. The rest are all moving away and joining the Palestinian camp. Two worlds. And it's not a difficult choice to make. Secondly, the impact of 7th of October, it ended the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are rubbish. Netanyahu was talking of an Abraham NATO. Abraham called NATO, an Arab and Israeli NATO. Abraham NATO is calling it's all over. The third thing was the Israeli deterrence power is over. It got over in 2000 when Hezbollah kicked it out of Lebanon. In 2006 when Hezbollah stopped the Israeli army on the borders. When Gaza was liberated by Hamas in 2005, Israel was over as a military power then. And it is on witness now that after 10 months of an Holocaust, the people of Palestine are refusing to surrender. There are no white flags. The resistance is asking for a ceasefire on its terms, and I'll come to the terms. So this is the impact that the power of Israeli deterrence as the military power is over. And with it, the Palestinian people have lost any sense of fear. Do your worst, they say. Starve us, kill us, bomb our children, bomb us, but we will not leave our land. We will not go away as refugees. We are staying with our land. So the sense of fear of the Israeli nuclear power is gone from the hearts of the Palestinians and the regional resistance. The other important was the legacy of Nelson Mandela stayed alive in South Africa. Unlike us in India, Mahatma Gandhi's legacy is in tatters because of Modi and the regime out here. But the South African government going to the ICC, the ICJ, filing the cases, where more than 93 countries at the last count are standing with South Africa in terms of this, the criminal case against for genocide against Israel is unprecedented because of the weaponization of sanctions, the way the dollar is weaponized against countries that go against America. But South Africa, a small country, and number of other countries, 90 plus, are all now standing against American power and with the Palestinian cause. An arrest warrant has been issued. We know that the rules-based order is in tatters. There was never a rules-based order. It was a non-rules-based disorder and an empire of chaos and wars. That's what we were on witness with the American, British, Israeli, France, German, Italian, the entire cabal that they have. So the rules-based order is over, long gone, and now it's all more than evident. The other point is the rise of the regional resistance. It was way back in 2006 when I would speak to my friends in Lebanon that when do you think Palestine will get liberated? It was all, this was 20 years ago. They said that the balance of power needs to change. Right now, the balance of power is too convoluted against us. Israel is here, America is here, we are right at the bottom, it will take time. But now, slowly, the balance of power is reaching where Israel and America would be here and the resistance is here, not a long gap. So you have the Palestinian resistance after 10 months standing strong in the Gaza and the West Bank. Now, Yoav Gallant is saying we'll use drones in the West Bank, or they can't proceed in the West Bank in terms of defeating Jenin or the various other parts of Jenin is the Gaza Grad over there. In Lebanon, of course, Hezbollah and the leftists and the other resistance, and it's not only Hezbollah, the leftist secular forces also in working in tandem with the Hezbollah and the Amal militia itself is very, very strong, very, very advanced. Syria, the army stands strong in the Golan Heights. In Iraq, the Hashd al-Shabi that defeated the ISIS, that is united Sunni, Shia, and Christian, is all set. They are ready. If Israel attacks Lebanon, then all of them are coming in through the Golan and from Lebanon itself. Iran, of course, stands steadfast. Iran has been the linchpin of the resistance ever since 1979. And it is because at that time, Palestine was alone and maybe a little Syria. But now Iran's rise has...
Feroz, please unmute and please synthesize in 1 minute, please.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Your volume is
Hello,
low
can you hear me?
again. Your volume is low again.
Yeah. And of course, then we have Yemen, the rise of the Houthis. And that is a fascinating chapter because the Houthis...
Volume up, please. Volume up,
they've been
please.
through 9 years of massacres through the Saudi, UAE, Britain, France, Israel, the entire murderous lot. And the Houthis now stand strong. They are
Feroz? Yes.
Yeah.
Feroz, your voice is too
Volume
low.
up, please. Volume up.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now. Please
Yeah,
wind
yeah.
up in 1 minute, please.
Yeah,
1 minute.
I just need a couple of more minutes. That's all. 2 minutes. Yeah. And then, of course, we have the rise, along with Iran, we have the rise of the Houthis. And they are defending the Red Sea. They're defending the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And they have brought the port of Eilat to a halt. So the rise of the Houthis being part of the resistance is just great. And of course, now we have Russia aligned closely with Iran. We have China and Russia working in tandem. So now the regional resistance is aligned with the global powers like Russia and China. So now the dynamics are changing more and more in favor of Palestine. And of course, the BRICS, the SCO, the rise in Latin America and Africa, all this is now bringing the global majority. The new term for the global south is no longer the global south. It is about the global majority because Russia is also part of the entire arch of the resistance. Lastly, all I'd like to say is that the longer the war lasts, the weaker that Israel will grow. Israel and America are used to shock and awe wars. Israel is used to very short wars. Those days are gone. That is why Netanyahu went running for more weapons and more bombs and God knows what else. But the longer this war goes, the raison d'etre of Israel was to create a secure state for the Jews. It was always a wrong idea, and now it is even more wrong. So they came in from the frying pan of Egypt into the fire of the region. They should have settled the matters in Europe itself, but they come in the wrong place. So the point is that number of Jews, the northern part of Israel or occupied Palestine for 48, that part is empty because Hezbollah is controlling the war out there. In the south, because of Gaza, they moved out. more than 500,000 Jews have left Israel and moved away, and God knows how many more. So the point is that either now there's a two-state solution which Hamas has agreed to, which even Yahya Sinwar of the Qassam Brigade has agreed to, which the Arab League agreed to in 2002, with the PLO agreed to in 1987. So the Arabs were always on the table, the Palestinians always on the table. Netanyahu's parliament has just passed a resolution that there'll be no solution. We are taking over all of the, all of occupied Palestine. So now it's a battle between three concepts. Either we have Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates as the biblical Israel, or we have a Palestine from the river to the sea, or then we have a two-state solution. There are three solutions which are all on the table. I believe the Palestinian will be winning this entire war. And lastly, I'd just like to say that, ever since the extreme Jewish Zionist fanatics have taken over, Israel has actually become weaker. So the extremism of Jewish fanaticism is all on evidence. Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu himself is a Zionist, fanatic, and the Christian Zionists to support them are even more crazy for the matter. And they are, of course, in alliance with the Islamic Wahhabists in Saudi and Jordan and guys like that. Yeah. All I like to say is that the term anti-Semitism, which is also used in our circles, is a misnomer. It's a very Eurocentric Christian term. The Palestinian Semites, the people of West Asia, Middle East are the true Semites. The majority of Jews are of Ashkenazi European origin. They're not even of Semitic origin. So you can't call a Palestinian to be an anti-Semite or an Iraqi or a Lebanese or a Syrian. They are the true Semitic people. And of course, the Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews also of Semitic origin. Yeah. Lastly, I'll say we need to globalize the Intifada. In India, we need to do much more, which Ravi Naidu will be talking of. I'm working with friends in Russia as well to build up the alliance or to gather more strength for the Palestinians. In India, we're filing a case against Adani Elbit for supplying drones because he's complicit in the genocide. That case is going to the Supreme Court. And we should work towards a Asia Solidarity Day. We should call for a day of protest, solidarity protests across Asia in the coming, couple of weeks or so. But we need to work at the pan-Asian level. Friends in Europe and America and in the Arab world are doing a lot of work. We in Asia need to do a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Feroz. I'm sorry for the limited time, and
No, it's
I'm
fine. I
sure
got a lot
that
of time. Thank you.
I'm sure that your sharp observation and analysis span from historical background to possible impact to international balance of power, or the rise or the fall of the ambitions of imperialist power. And there were many sharp critical points, including the terms and concepts and descriptions of the situation we are using. That was, I think, well noted. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to move to our next speaker, Ravi Naid from South Asia Human Rights Documentation Center. Ravi, you have 10 minutes. Are we also having difficulty with...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Ravi?
Okay. Allow me first, through the Palestinian friends here, to salute the raw courage of the Palestinian people. This is a hard act to follow. Two of us present in this discussion, me and Boontan, through the now defunct Asia Pacific Human Rights Facilitating Team, had good relations with Al-Haq and the Gaza-based Palestinian Center for Human Rights throughout the 1990s. For me, there is anguish and anger for not being able to do more for Palestinians and their quest for self-determination. I shall be brutally honest as usual. Much of the scant campaign in Asia has been sporadic street protests. There is little planning at the national or regional level. One can only marvel at the work of the Palestine Solidarity Committee in the United Kingdom. In India, even meaningful protest has not been possible. Of late, peaceful public protest of all kinds has been criminalized. The few that have got away with it are those who had very large numbers participating in them. The state machinery, the few wiser amongst them, at least in urban areas, chose to exercise discretion for obvious reasons in their action. In New Delhi, they banish you to a side street where you have only yourself as an audience. While street protests are welcome, there is little concerted economic action against multinationals and state-owned enterprises who are not only heavily invested in the Zionist war-making machine, but actually aiding and abetting the present genocide in Gaza. Malaysian citizens seem to have hurt McDonald's and their franchise. The company, as you are aware, supplied free food kits to the Zionist army in Gaza and the West Bank. In boycott, disinvestment and sanctions, BDS and his campaign has hurt Starbucks in North America and the UK. In Asia, it is business as usual. University students in the West have launched major disinvestment agitations against the sizable investment funds that universities have invested in Israel and Israeli-owned corporations. They are now agitating for the sundering of all academic ties with Israeli universities. In India, as elsewhere, the Israelis are on academic ties signing spree. Two feeble but useful protests at one law school and one private university only point towards the crying need for mass outrage. The second issue that needs major action is the export of Asian migrant labor to Israel and the illegal settlements in the occupied territories. India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal in South Asia, and Thailand and Philippines are all part of this exercise. Asian labor facilitates the increasing deployment of Zionist men and women in oppressive actions in Gaza and the West Bank. The Philippines government has given blind diplomatic support to Israel, while others doing the same privately have hedged their bets publicly for more than one consideration. The elephant in the room is the arms trade and intelligence sharing between the Zionists and all the aforesaid countries, with the honorable addition of the Republic of Korea and the statelet Taiwan. In fact, from 2014 to 2022, South Korea exported $43.9 million US dollars worth of weapons to Israel. The Indian state and private enterprises have, from supplying sophisticated drones, software and tank and artillery ammunition to the Zionist killing machine, is expanding. Finally, what can be done? One, create a loose and inclusive coordinating campaign in each country and target a visible multinational corporation that is heavily invested in Israel and your country. Assign specific responsibilities to each and every participating organization. Two, do a mapping exercise of all Israeli investments in your country and your country's investment ties in Israel. Mark out the contours for a campaign. Three, research military, security and intelligence cooperation between your country and Israel and put the information in the public domain for starters. Four, much more, but discretion demands ample private consultation both nationally and internationally. Cut off ties with donors who support Israeli society, civil society, who have not taken a clear stand on Palestinian self-determination. Relearn from the US students the need for a peaceful civil disobedience. All of us in Asia seem to have forgotten it. Lastly, most important of it all is stop, jaw, and act in any way you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. That was quite succinct, quite summarized. Thank you very much. And also thank you for including specific recommended actions for all of us. Now, I would like to move to the discussions. We had two discussions at the beginning. Again, I'm sorry that one of the discussants are missing or not available today. So I'd like to invite Anuradha Chenoy, a political scientist from India and a strong supporter and analysis of peace movements and other social movements in Asia Pacific. Anu, may I ask, given the three wonderful inputs, please include in your discussion what would be the impact of this resistance of Palestinians, renewed resistance? What would be the impact to the international situations, power relations, and what messages will it create for the course of social action for NGOs and civil society actors? Thank you, Anu. You have 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. And just before, I just saw a message, maybe Dr. Ghassan is here, so you can check. So after I finish, maybe you can, because again, someone has said maybe he's here. But anyway, so I think, number one, I would also like to express firstly my solidarity with the Palestinian people, their struggle. I don't think we have seen any kind of comparable anti-colonial struggle as we have amongst the Palestinians. All of us from the global south had anti-colonial struggles, national movements, but we never faced this kind of oppression as we see today. Second, as we've seen very clearly, Israel has violated every possible international law. It's a complete rogue state, and it is able to do so because of the backing of the US. And I think we should pay a lot of attention to that. And NATO. NATO just had its 75th anniversary conference in Washington just 2.5 weeks ago. And in that, they outlined every possible security threat to NATO, Russia and China and Iran, but not once did they mention the word of Israel or what is happening in Gaza. There was no mention of the word negotiation, the need for peace. So NATO has a huge relationship with Israel in oppressing Palestine. So we have to also broaden our struggle to show these links and why Israel continues to play rogue. The third point which came up from Sarah from Palestine is that if Israel and its backers are using every possible institution, direct and indirect, to dehumanize and carry out this Holocaust or genocide, or you can use the both interchangeably, because there is no way that anyone can deny it. And now I think we also have to spread the word of the ICJ, which has said very clearly how Israel is on the path of genocide. Every time they have a hearing, and last week they made it very clear, though the legal case goes on. The ICC has put arrest warrants against Netanyahu. So those are the collective oppressors. On the other side is the resistance, and there are various circles of resistance. The major resistance, of course, is from the Palestinian people. But as Firoz showed, and I've also written earlier, the second circle of resistance, which comes from Iran, the Houthis, Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the entire arc of resistance, as they call it, or as they're called in the West, the terrorists, is also something which is being targeted now. In 3 documents, the NATO document, in Netanyahu's speech in the Congress, where he has also said that the root cause is Iran, and that is where now we should focus. And third, just 2 weeks ago, Anthony Blinken in the Aspen Institute said that Iran is 2 weeks away from making a nuclear weapon. So this whole threat like they had of Iraq, of weapons of mass destruction, that narrative has started from the West. And the kind of their interest in attacking Iran and also, of course, Hezbollah, Houthis, etc. The other resistance comes from several, which is much more muted, is from the countries of the global south. It's more declaratory. And as Ravi has shown, they make these declarations that we support a 2-state solution, etc. But at the same time, there are deep contradictions where they continue with arms and trade and the business as usual. But another interesting resistance is also from Russia and China. China's latest meeting just a few days ago with 14 Palestinian factions, bringing them together, I think was very important. And the fact that China is an active player along with Russia in the Middle East and the kind of fires which are spreading there. So the game is not over there. There was a delegation of Yemen in Moscow the last 2 weeks. They couldn't get very far because of Saudi pressure, but Russia and China are also coordinating on this issue to make a bit of space. So what is happening geopolitically really is the attempt by the rest to open the little cracks to make Israel more and more vulnerable, so that this conjuncture of forces, hopefully soon, would lead once again to the collapse of this so-called Iron Dome and the NATO backups, etc. So the geopolitical space is changing. And lastly, I think what I would suggest is groups like us have a role. We need to coordinate in different ways. One way which many intellectuals can do and have been doing is to challenge the dominant Western narrative. Use the alternative media, use these webinars, and put out what is happening in Palestine, put out the new signals of war in West Asia, put out what our own governments, what our own continent is doing. And if we don't do it, how NATO is entering so easily into Asia, into the Indian Ocean, into the Pacific, etc., and how this goes on. So at different levels, both Ravi, of course, advocated direct action. I would say there's also the importance of intellectual action, like we have done today, from the Asian Social Forum, World Social Forum, the IPB, and the hundreds of organizations, which are interestingly beginning to have excellent coordination, as we can see today. Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Anu, for your excellent synthesizing discussion. And some of your points also gives us alarm, the possible new wars and expansion of the role of Israeli military actions backed by NATO. So what we witness in Palestine has much larger military and imperialist impact. And that's why we need more concerted thinking, analysis, follow-up, and actions. Thank you so much. And I am told that Dr. Ghassan is using Zakaria's Zoom. So Again, may I check? Dr. Ghassan Sete, are you there? Can you hear us? So in the chat box, who wrote this? The host said Ghassan is using Zakaria's line.
Yes, I informed because Zakaria informed in the chat box. Dr. Ghassan is there, so
Yeah.
maybe Zakaria has to listen.
Okay, then either Zakaria or Dr. Ghassan, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Francis, I
Yes.
can hear you. No, he is not with me. But at the beginning, I talked to him. I think he's in Ireland, somewhere abroad. He told me I am in the meeting at the beginning. So that's why I wrote he is in the meeting with us, but he's not with me.
Oh, I see, I
okay.
see. So he is not available for us today. Yes, I'm sorry to hear that, because he was the first speaker to open our discussions. Then maybe there is another chance in near future to have him. Now we have all the speakers and discussions, and now I open the floor for your inputs, your responses, and questions. If you can use, if you want to use your screen and microphone, that's fine. If you want to leave your questions on the chat box, that's also fine. Yes, I have a hand from Usha. Please speak.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to. I'm from Nepal. I'm in Kathmandu. So we are here. A few of friends from Nepal are here joining this meeting. And just briefly, I would like to say about Nepal's initiation, what we have done. So since May, after the World Social Forum, and from May, we are doing lots of street protests against Israeli genocide with the support of Free Palestine. That is what we are doing with different groups. And the very good, we are trying to connect with various political parties and the various individuals and the organization that's going on. And the second, we are trying to understand the Palestine issues with Nepal issue also, right? This is basically it's a land issue. Historically, if we see, it's a land issue, and the land is the bigger problem in South Asia, right? So that is one, and at the same time also all this capitalistic idea, how we are going to respond, and also we are trying to understand what kind of political system will be in Palestine after the liberation, after the free Palestine. That is also is really important, which we really need to discuss after Nepal's political process now where we are. Because in Nepal also, we had 10 years people's war, armed conflict, and we really had a strong hope for change. Of course, we able to thrown out monarchy from Nepal, and now Nepal is secular federal republic country. But beside that, all the social justice is not hopeful, right? So we have loss of prostration. So at the same time, we really need to discuss about the what kind of political state, political system we really want. And I think if Himali is going to share quickly, Nepal and Israel have G2G MOU, and Nepal recently decided through the vacancy to send caregivers to Israel, and then we few of people came with the signature appeal with the Nepal government not to send Nepali caregivers to Israel. And recently, last week, I think there was a meeting between Israeli ambassador and the labor minister, and they agreed to send more caregivers. So now Nepal is ready as a government to send more caregivers. And also I heard like Nepal is going to send more Nepalese citizens for the construction work area. So already there was Raviji mentioned about how the migrant workers is sending from South Asia. So I would like to propose to have more meetings, how we can do strong collaboration among us and in all the label, like academic label and activism, and also the in the area of relief also, because we really need to send humanitarian support also. That is also very important. And for the information, people in Sri Lanka, they are very active, and every day they are doing protest in Colombo. And I don't know most part of the India, but I knew through news about activities is happening regularly in Indore. But I don't know about other parts of India, how the activity is happening in the street, in the public sphere. And of course, now the India's political situation is much better than earlier. And I just shared a WhatsApp link in chat box. We created Palestine Solidarity Nepal Coordination Committee. So we really want to have inside Nepal and outside Nepal discussion and collaboration, how we can go forward. And the one thing was we realized very few people, they really able to connect the issues and the pain within ourselves, right? That is one challenge which I found among the younger generation and the youth in the larger society, how we can do much creative activities to understand Palestine issue is our future, our issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Usha, for sharing your activities and situation, especially recommending more focused meetings on Palestine and our own situation. Thank you. And I ask more responses from the floor to 4 speakers. I see hand from Moti.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to articulate my view, especially I'm much more influential. Firoz and Anuradha, those who give international politics, those who bold the huge political regimes, especially our combating against imperialism and revolutionary thought. Two major issues is here. So imperialism always think themselves to dominations is led by the USA, France, and also the UK. You already understand this. The Anuradha also mentioned the China and Russia is also the collaboration each other. Already mentioned the current situations. So we have to necessary to give information. The two special warriors. In the present situations, the Palestinians has sacrificed the huge peoples. 38,000 is a huge number of people has contribution their life, but still they are not success for victory. So how we analyze it, especially only the surrender of the Israeli, the small country, and we also combating these kinds of situations. The major issue, we cast also the gun against the Israeli. Why should not give this kind of slogan to this kind of right things? The combating is necessary to combat. The war, success to war. Without virtual suggestions, without giving right suggestion, it is impossible to win the victory to the Palestinian warriors. So the international intellectual and thinkers given as philosophical ideas, so we have necessary to combating by combating process. That the huge Palestinian people have sacrificed their lives without any kinds of cause. The child, women, and very innocent people was very crucial, the genocides, but nobody listened their voice, their ideas, and their pain and agonies. So it is the intellectual mass, the intellectual thinkers has given the two type of thought, especially the Firoz and also the other thinker, those who gives new ideas. The main issue is we also join the collaboration, international, as a rebellion persons like Russia, Putin, and Xi Jinping. We are also hopeful that, and also the collaboration encompassing this against this kinds of imperialism struggles, because the world are divided into two thoughts. Yes, one is the very much sufferers, those imperialisms, and very warriors also. The imperialism not always wins around the world. You read the history in the First War and Second Great Wars in world. So it is necessary to go in the third world like that, because the globally the matter is always changeable, always changeable. So not existing always the imperialist and always the very discriminatory forces. So the very innocently Palestinian warrior, Palestinian agonist has continued sacrifice their lives for obtaining the victory and obtaining the justice. The one is the Palestinians also, again they cast the guns, cast the ballistic missile to against Israel. Okay. This kind of warrior voice is even not given the Palestinian warriors. It is difficult. They always domination, the invasions, their missiles, and their guns. Always they surrendered the Palestinian peoples. We only given a sympathy also, our tear, and also very sympathetical words. It is difficult. It is not good words. So we given the very vibrable, very rigorous, very combative sound and persons to Palestinian warrior, Palestinian peoples around the world, and we also collected some negotiations, unification. Just Anuradha already mentions. So we collected, we given this kind of platform, we created this kind of platform around the world. Those who are very much globally working with the Palestinian peoples and combating against the imperialism. We collected the fund, we collect the missile, we collect the voice, we collect the warriors' thoughts. Then we can successfully win, and we contributed whole times to the Palestinian warriors and Palestinian peoples. So I requested the director, the Francis sir, please also organize another high intellectual negotiation, high intellectual discourse about this, how we will win the especially third world country peoples, especially the very much sufferer peoples against the imperialism. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Moti, for your supportive reaction to all the speakers, and also advocating for more solidarity and resistance against occupation and imperialist actions. Now, probably with a given time, I'd like to invite the last respondent from the floor, Himali Dixit, as you have your hand. You have the floor.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you, Ushadi, for suggesting I share. So like Usha has said, there is, can you hear me? Is my sound clear? Okay. As Ushadi has said, we have been having quite a few protests here, but it's also true that that we haven't done the work, over the decades, or the work of having broad conversations about this hasn't yet happened, and the work of building broad solidarity hasn't yet happened, and we're hoping that it happens through this work. One thing that we're working on really hard right now is to stop the government from sending Nepali workers to Israel through a government-to-government agreement, and this gains more traction. Of course, worker safety is a very important thing, and it gains more traction when we foreground worker safety as opposed to a genocide, which we are, of course, also talking about. But we're really hoping that we're able to stop these workers from going, and two, that this builds solidarity for a campaign to cut all ties with Israel. And the big victory is that the trade unions are involved, and they're working on making this a pan-union issue. So we're hoping that happens soon. I'm trying to think, is there anything else on that issue? No, I think that's all I have for now.
Support.
Francis, we can't hear you.
Muted, Francis.
Thank you, Himali, for your comment and reaction. I also support your thought that trade unions should also have stronger and new initiatives for solidarity with Palestine.
One more
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
So we have indication, and we haven't been able to have anybody speak out in a way that that would make this be credibly documented. But we have indication that Nepali workers in Israel are receiving weapons training, and this is a very frightening thing. It looks like this is it looks like this is shadow mobilization for the IDF.
Okay. Yes, I think there should be a very strong call for trade unions and all working people to stop this war mobilization, war transportation, arms transfer, etc. Thank you. And on the chat box, I have one more comment from the floor. Buntan wrote, Palestine people are dying. What can we do to reverse the situation? So it's about reducing the, killings and dyings and tortures and so forth, humanitarian side. Now, I'd like to return to the speakers and discussant as the last part. Sabrina, I see your hand. Would you like to speak before I return to the speakers?
Yeah,
Can you
maybe
sure?
I will. Yes, I can make it very quick. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for raising up the Palestinian voice on this matter. And I just wanted to highlight one more very important thing is that we all have to put all the efforts on prioritizing an immediate and permanent ceasefire now, not tomorrow, not the day after it. It's now, and all the effort have to go first to cease the fire on Gaza, and then all the other efforts, which is like also important. Just wanted to highlight this matter.
Yes.
And thank you.
Yes. Yeah. The urgency of ceasefire has been in the movement from the beginning and is getting more urgent. Thank you. And I'd like to ask all the speakers and discussant in the same order to highlight the actions, your recommendations for more regional and more global concerted actions. So what are your key inputs that the action groups should focus given this analysis of the situation? May I start from Sarah? Sahar Francis.
Yes. First, allow me to thank all the speakers. It was really amazing to listen for all of you, and this is encouraging and gives hope for me as a Palestinian and as a lawyer and as a human rights defender working on the ground. And I would highlight the need for really raising more awareness about the importance of joining the Palestinian struggle, because it's a global struggle for justice and equality and not just about Palestine. And the second point is really intensify the efforts for boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel and all the other perpetrators and the complicit in the genocide that is taking place. Because I totally agree, it's not just Israel, it's all the other allies on the weapons issues, on the economical level, and all other levels. So it's cultural, sports, and all the sectors. We should think about how to join efforts to punish those complicit in genocide and other grave violations in Palestine and in other places in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Feroz. Feroz, your mic is muted.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one is We need to work more on the Asian level. Europe and America, there's some wonderful movements even in the Arab countries, but a lot more needs to be done at the Asian level. We do have a certain level of coordination, but we need more of Asian solidarity. And we did manage this when we had organized the first Asian corridor to Gaza, where we got 16 Asian countries involved. So we really need to reach out to a number of more Asian countries, including Central Asian countries, including with friends in Russia and China and so on. We need to open up more borders for our work. The other thing is we seem to be very weak in South Asia because of the very peculiar situation we are in South Asia. But recently I was in Iran, and after a long time I met friends from Pakistan and from Nepal and from Sri Lanka. Even when I was in Kathmandu, we did discuss this idea. But we need to create a South Asian solidarity for Palestine. South Asia really needs that because the workers, the weapons, even I think the mercenaries from Nepal and India would be going to Palestine to fight. We already know that, Jews from Mizoram and Manipur and all are being taken there to fight in the IDF. It's not the IDF, it's the IOF, by the way. The other thing is that in terms of, we need to call for an Asian Day of Solidarity, or one day of protest across Asia with 3 or 4 basic calls. One is to end the genocide, end the Holocaust of the Palestinian people, establish a Palestinian state, call for the arrest of Netanyahu because of the ICJ, ICC the verdicts that are coming in. 3, 4 very clear demands that we need to have. And along with it, build up people's support for the axis of resistance. Let us say we stand with the axis of resistance. So that is one part of it. And also call out the US, Israel, UK, France, Britain, the so-called rules-based order hypocrites and liars and mass murderers. We need to take them on. We need to take on Jordan. We need to take on all the other, countries that are part of the Israel axis. We need to call them out. And lastly, I'd like to say that when I say we call for the support of the axis of resistance, I come from a Gandhian background, non-violent resistance, but we had both forms in India, and both forms are right in their own ways. Armed resistance is recognized by the United Nations as part of international law, that national struggles have a right to armed resistance. Nelson Mandela never gave up the right to armed resistance. Okay. And for people who talk about the non-violent path, yes, we should talk about non-violent path. For 1.5 years, the people of Gaza in 2018, for 1.5 years, they marched every Friday. Not a single Gandhian in India, I think, knew about it. No one wrote a letter of support either. So that is the kind of problems that we are facing. But the point is that a clear-cut support for the armed resistance in the axis of resistance, including Russia and China, who are part of the third circle, as Anuradha-ji clearly spoke about. And for us, as a people's movement, we will march on the streets, we will be non-violent, we will be peaceful. So there's a combination of both these types. Yeah, that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Feroz. The organizers will collect all these suggestions and make a written record and begin to discuss for implementing. And then may I invite, on the chat box, there are more recommendations, so please read. And now, Ravi, can you give your final comments focusing on recommended actions? Ravi Nair?
Ravi bhai.
Are you there? Then while waiting, Anu, can you speak first?
Okay, so, there's one thing that we have not touched on, which I'll take this opportunity to do so, is the fact that, along with the axis of resistance, don't forget the support that the United Nations has given. Earlier, many people used to say, the UN is useless, but they have played a stellar role.
Exactly.
Over 100 of their at UNRWA on the ground have been killed. Their school in Palestine has been bombed. Why? Because they are playing this role. The Secretary General is repeating it in every speech that there should be a ceasefire. He's been criticized by the United States as being partisan and not talking about this so-called Israel-Hamas conflict, which it is not.
Oh.
He has said there is no collateral damage, as they're calling it. He has said it is targeted assassination and murder. There's a planned famine. It is not starvation. It is a apartheid in food distribution. It's a blockage. So the UN is on our side. It's just that, we are fighting against this cabal of imperialist, neo-colonialist states, which is so strong, and that our countries have to bow to them. Otherwise, all, sanctions will destroy millions more. It's so easy for them. So states act slowly, but from our point of view, I think we have to keep cracking their narrative. The mainstream media is not a media. It's a function of a part of the oligarchs. So we have to use forum like this. We might be 50 now, but we have to put it on YouTube. We have to keep pushing. You remember when this genocide began in the first few months, how much there was on YouTube, which the owners of YouTube and WhatsApp blocked. So you can't use the word, instead of the word Nazi, people are using the word naughty because the algorithm was such that they'll block it. The naughties, they're saying, or something like that. Because so we're up against a huge military, industrial, oligarch, imperialist complex. So with that, we can, I suppose, do these small actions and try and crack the narrative as much as we can. And I think we are doing it as much as we can.
So,
So
just to add to the
what's
United
important.
Nations, just to add to the United Nations,
Well,
Guterres
one
also
thing,
said that 7th of October did not happen in a vacuum. He said
that's
that
right.
as well. Very
The
important.
UN reports are saying that.
Yes.
Every UN report has said it. Moreover, for Sahar, under the Geneva Conventions, the International Committee of the Red Cross is obliged to go for prison visits. So I think there should be a open signature campaign to the International Committee of the Red Cross based in Switzerland that please follow the Geneva Conventions. And there is an additional protocol of the Geneva Conventions endorsed, I think, also by Israel, which talks about respecting humanitarian law, etc. So I think we need to, just like South Africa has done, push these kids. And my last point is, I recall when Iraq war happened, the Malaysian government played such a major role in having a people's tribunal on Iraq. There was one meeting in Malaysia and another meeting somewhere else. All the major international lawyers were there. So the states which are backing this, which are part of this resistance, like South Africa, like Malaysia, Indonesia, I think Turkey also now, we should appeal to them also to give this a bigger push before, an entire generation, younger generation of Palestinians are dead. They're targeting women and children. Why? And children's hospitals, because they don't want to see the next generation. So I think these are things we need to bring continuously to light so that more people are mobilized and have these campaigns. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. That was also wonderful, as usual. Thank you. Before turning to one of the organizers to give closing remark, I'm thinking of a Puntan to give a closing remark.
Just keep Cora.
Oh, Cora. Cora, are you there? I'd like to say my final words. Listening to the speakers and the floor, I feel that there is a very strong need to create a regional platform to fight with Palestinians and also to continue this solidarity and also plan better our joint actions. I feel urgent need to create a Palestine solidarity platform on the regional scale. So that's my final point, and I'd like to thank everyone in this group. It was maximum 50, and now it's 44 for staying with us and paying attention to all the analysis and proposals. Thank you very much. And now, Cora. If not Cora, Buntan. Cora first.
Okay, Francis.
Closing remark.
Well, closing, but let me say that it has been really a very enriching discussion. I think this is not the last what we'd call discussion that we are going to have. Given the intensity of the current situation, what's happening, there is an echo.
रवि जी शायद आपका कुछ है मामला
There is an echo. Well, that one, and I think there has been a proposal for us to continue and adopt some plans. I think that's very important to consider. Of course, beyond the study session or the webinar that we are holding. And I think there is also a need for us to expand our reach, but it's also very inspiring to really listen to the account of actual situation. It's actually the stories from the ground that really moves people, that really moves us to action. So that's my wish, that in the coming days we could listen to more voices from the ground, especially the women as well, no? and the younger generation. And I think that's something that the Asia Pacific Social Forum process would have to deal with. I'd like to thank the speakers for being with us today. Of course, Francis for moderating it very effectively. And that's it. I think I have to turn it over to Buntan, who has been really the real big conspirator in this work that we are doing. Buntan?
Okay, thank you so much, Cora. Thank you, Francis, and all the speakers, as well as all the audience. Actually, the speakers have given us a very touching moment. We have also heard and also learning many new stories that we haven't heard before. Actually, the very first Palestinian friend I met was in the 1990s in Manila, when we organized the General Assembly of the Asian Student Association, when I was the Secretary General. Our friend from Palestine, from the General Union of Palestinian Students or groups, is also provides a very interesting lesson for the struggle. Of course, it's also related to the very first Intifada in 1991. I think that is also something very inspiring in terms of the movement. But concerning the recent situation here, I think we also quite alarmed by the genocidal action by the Israeli Zionist people. That is also have to take in consideration, and we really need to have provide our international solidarity in order to help our Palestinian brother and sister. I think that is also the collective effort that we can really do it from now on. If we haven't started earlier, then we have to do it now. Don't think this is a closing remark, but it's something that we renew our solidarity and work commitment to work together. Of course, I think this is not the last session we're going to conduct. So many recommendation, very good recommendation coming out from the meeting. I think we also take into consideration and take a move from now on. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to Francis, who doing with the moderating role very well. And look forward to see you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Buntan and Cora. So this is the closing moment, and we would probably all promise to meet again very soon as a continuation of this discussion. So goodbye for now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Long live
Bye.
Palestine.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, from river to the sea. Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you,
Free
everyone.
Palestine.
Thanks, everyone.
Cora, don't run away. We still have the work to do. Not the one, Francis. Where are the others? Aman.
Should I end the meeting or?
No.
No, Sunny, for a while. Actually, we're supposed to have the short meeting of the Asia Pacific Social Forum that we are the co-organizer of this event. And in the meantime, you can also off the Facebook and YouTube at the moment.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be doing some further discussion on the follow-up and also our
Okay,
forthcoming
so I'll
meetings.
leave it on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mina and William Dean joining us today. No? Nasreen here, Francis. Yeah, what we going to do, Cora?
Well, there are those proposals, and I don't think that that this is the last. There are many dimensions of this issue.